What happens when a man who has spent his entire life in cruelty, violence, and theft, unknowingly performs the highest worship known to the universe, not through devotion, not through penance, not through knowledge, but through sheer destiny, and in a single night transforms from a destroyer of life into a vessel of divine grace? This is not a story of imagination, nor is it a moral tale created for comfort, but a sacred episode that reveals the mysterious compassion of Lord Shiva, who does not look at one's past, but only at the sincerity of the present moment, and whose grace can descend even upon those who never knew they were worthy of it. This is the story of a forest hunter, 3 truthful deer, and the night of Shivaratri that changed not only one life, but the very meaning of redemption itself. Deep inside a vast forest, there lived a man named Gurudruh, a hunter of the Bhil tribe, whose life had been shaped by violence, hunger, and survival rather than compassion or virtue. From his earliest childhood, he had never been taught the difference between right and wrong, and as he grew into a powerful and fearless man, his strength turned into cruelty, his courage into aggression, and his skill with weapons into a tool for destruction. Every day, he entered the forest with his bow and arrows, killed innocent creatures for food, stole from people when opportunity arose, and returned home only to satisfy the hunger of his family, never once reflecting on the consequences of his actions or the burden of sin he was silently collecting. Years passed in this way, and his heart hardened with every life he took, until one day, without his knowledge, the most sacred night in the spiritual calendar arrived, the night of Maha Shivaratri, when the universe itself becomes still in reverence to Lord Shiva. On that very day, his aged parents, his wife, and his children were overcome by hunger. When they looked at him with helpless eyes and asked him to bring food, his heart, though still dark, was filled with restless worry and fear of returning empty-handed. He took his bow and left his hut with urgency, roaming through the forest from morning until evening. Yet strangely, not a single animal appeared before him, as though the forest itself was holding its breath. When the sun finally disappeared and darkness spread across the land, despair entered his heart. He began to think of the suffering that awaited him at home, wondering how he could face his starving family without bringing them even a single meal. Driven by despair, he reached a pond where animals usually came to drink water. He climbed the nearby bale tree. Climbing the tree, he decided to wait, telling himself that sooner or later some creature would come, and he would finally be able to fulfill his duty as a provider, even if it meant another act of violence. As the first part of the night unfolded, a gentle deer, tormented by thirst and unaware of the danger above her, cautiously approached the pond, her movements filled with fear and urgency. The hunter raised his bow, his eyes fixed on his prey. But in that moment, his foot shifted on the branch, causing drops of water and bay leaves to fall from the tree. Below, hidden in the shadows, stood a shivling, and those falling leaves and drops of water landed directly upon it, unknowingly completing the first sacred worship of that Shivaratri, and his sins were erased. The deer sensed danger and expressed her helplessness, asking him what he was about to do. The hunter told the deer that his entire family was hungry and that he needed to kill her to satisfy their hunger. She declared that if her body could bring happiness to his starving family, then there could be no greater virtue than self-sacrifice. She revealed that her children were waiting for her, and with deep sincerity, she promised that she would return after placing them in safe care. But the hunter did not believe her and refused to let her go. She then spoke of truth as the foundation of the universe, saying that the earth, oceans, rivers, and all existence stand upon truth alone. She swore that if she failed to return, then the sins of a Brahman who sells the Vedas and does not worship during the 3 Sandhyas, the sins of women who violate their husbands' orders and remain engaged in forbidden acts, the sins committed by an ungrateful person, the sins of one who turns away from Lord Shiva, the sins of a traitor, those who violate Dharma, and the sins of betrayers and deceivers. All those sins would fall upon her if she did not return. Though the hunter initially doubted her, he allowed her to go. Thus, the first watch of the night passed while he remained awake. Soon after, another deer arrived, searching for her sister. The hunter prepared to strike, but once again, water and bay leaves fell upon the shivling below. This coincidentally resulted in completing the second divine worship, which was beneficial for the hunter. The deer asked him about his intentions, and he replied the same as before. This deer, too, expressed her willingness to sacrifice herself, saying that if her temporary body could benefit him, then her incarnation would be successful. But she begged for a brief return to her children, so she could hand them over to their father and then return. The hunter did not agree. Swearing upon the sacredness of truth, the deer declared that she always did what she said. If she did not return, she would incur sins equal to breaking one's word or deviating from a promise, abandoning one's lawful wife and committing adultery, violating Vedic Dharma and following an arbitrary path, being a devotee of Lord Vishnu while criticizing Lord Shiva, not performing Shraddha on the death anniversary of parents, and fulfilling a promise unwillingly, without sincerity or proper intention. Though suspicion filled the hunter's heart, he allowed her to leave, and the second watch of the night passed in restless waiting without sleep. As the third watch of the night began, a strong male deer approached the pond. The hunter, now both desperate and hopeful, prepared to end his long wait. Yet once again, by the mysterious design of destiny, bay leaves fell upon the sacred symbol of Lord Shiva, completing the third act of worship. Thus, Lord Shiva showed his mercy upon him. The deer asked the hunter what he was doing, and the hunter repeated the same account as before. The deer then declared that he considered himself fortunate and blessed, for he possessed the strength and ability to satisfy the hunter. He explained that a life not used in the service of others becomes meaningless, and that strength left unused for compassion leads only to suffering in the afterlife. He added that he would return after entrusting his children to their mother and giving them courage. The hunter, now inwardly conflicted, with a purified mind and his sins destroyed, said, "Everyone who came here spoke the same words as you, yet those deceivers never returned. You too, when faced with danger, will speak falsely and depart. If you do not return, how am I to survive this day?" The deer replied that he did not speak falsely and always fulfilled his word, for the entire universe is founded upon truth. He said that when a person's words are false, their life, good deeds, and virtues are destroyed in an instant. He declared that the sins of engaging in sexual acts during the evening, eating on Shivaratri, giving false testimony, stealing inherited property, killing a Brahman, never uttering the name of Lord Shiva, failing to perform good deeds or offer help despite having the ability, plucking bay leaves during Shiv festivals, and eating without worshipping Shiv may all fall upon him if he did not return. Moved yet still uncertain, the hunter released him as well and urged him to return quickly. The deer drank from the pond and departed, and the night deepened into silence. After making their promises, all the deer returned to their dwelling. There, they met one another and shared the entire account. Having listened carefully to each other's words and being bound by truth, they resolved to return to the hunter. However, the elder deer said that since she had given her word first, she alone should go, and the other two should remain behind to care for the children. Hearing this, the younger deer replied that she was like a servant to them and therefore she should go instead. The male deer then intervened, asking both does to stay back, saying that it is the mother who protects and nurtures the children. His wife felt that this was neither proper nor in accordance with Dharma. She said that living as a widow would be a disgrace and unrighteous. After this discussion, they consoled their children, gave them courage, and entrusted them to the care of their neighbors before setting out toward the hunter. Yet the children, believing that whatever fate awaited their parents should also be theirs, quietly followed them. At last, as the final watch of the night approached, all 3 deer returned together. They stood before the hunter in complete surrender, ready to fulfill their promise. The hunter, filled with joy, lifted his bow and set his arrows in place. At that very moment, the final offering of bay leaves and water fell upon the Shivling, completing the 4th worship. Instantly, the burden of countless sins was lifted from his soul. The male deer spoke gently. "O best among hunters, be gracious to us and make our bodies meaningful." Hearing these words, the hunter was astonished. Through the power of Lord Shiva's worship, he attained rare insight, and a wave of realization passed through him. He perceived the purity of those he had intended to kill and recognized that their compassion far exceeded his own humanity. He reflected deeply, these deer, though without worldly knowledge, were blessed, innocent, and eager to use their bodies for righteousness. Countless thoughts arose within him. What had he truly gained from his human birth? He had sustained his body by tormenting others and maintained his family through daily acts of sin. A profound sense of shame overwhelmed him for having wasted such a precious life. Overcome with remorse, he cast aside his bow, condemned his past deeds, and resolved that he would no longer live by taking innocent lives. In that sacred moment, Lord Shiv appeared before him in radiant splendor, placing his hand upon the hunter and blessing him. Pleased with his fast and worship, the Lord invited him to ask for a boon. At the sight of the divine, the hunter was inwardly liberated and fell at the Lord's feet, saying that he had already received everything. Bestowing grace upon him, Lord Shiv named him Guh and granted him divine blessings. He declared that Shringverpur would become his noble capital, where he would enjoy prosperity and spiritual fulfillment. His lineage would flourish through the ages and be honored even by the gods. The Lord further foretold that one day Lord Rama himself would visit his dwelling and befriend him. With his mind devoted to Shiv, he would ultimately attain supreme liberation. The moment the deer beheld Lord Shiv and bowed before him, they were instantly released from their cursed animal birth, assumed radiant divine forms, ascended into a celestial aerial chariot, and departed joyfully for the heavenly realms. The hunter, now transformed by devotion, began a new life guided by righteousness. From that time onward, upon Mount Arbudachal, Lord Shiv came to be known as Vyadheshwar, who grants both worldly joy and liberation to those who behold and worship him. Thus, even when performed unknowingly, the worship of Shivaratri bestowed divine grace and led to Sayujya Mukti. When such worship, even without intention or awareness, can purify and uplift, the fruit of observing this sacred fast with conscious devotion, faith, and reverence is naturally far greater. Among all spiritual practices spoken of in the scriptures and across various paths, the Shivaratri Vrata stands as supremely auspicious. The merit gained from numerous fasts, pilgrimages, charitable acts, sacrifices, austerities, and sacred recitations does not equal the merit of this holy observance. For those who seek their true welfare, this sacred observance bestows both divine blessings in life and liberation beyond. If this sacred narration touched your heart, please like, share, subscribe to our channel, and comment Har Har Mahadev. Until then, inspire and stay inspired.